Well, it's finally time. Welcome to Gotcha Hell, everyone. Soberoni of Jeanne Reviews here with a servant spotlight for the chief operator of the salt mines, Jalter. We'll be examining her stats and skills, as well as going over pointers on how to utilize her effectively and an overall grade comparing her to how she stacks up to the other 5-star servants. I also have a spotlight for Thomas Edison and Da Vinci event guide up on the channel right now, so do check those out right after this. Now, on to Jalter's stats. Jalter has a max HP of 11,761, which is absolutely abysmal for a 5-star servant. It is the lowest among all 5-star servants in the game, and even a good portion of 4-star servants have a higher max HP. However, to make up for this, she has a max attack of 13,244, making her the highest attack servant in the game, and the only servant with over 13,000 attack. Taking a look at her skills, her first skill is Self-Modification rank EX, which increases crit strength for 3 turns between 20 to 50%, and increases crit star gather rate for 3 turns between 400 and 800%, both depending on level. Her second skill is Dragon Witch rank EX, which increases the attack of all allies for 3 turns between 10 to 20%, and increases the attack of all dragon allies for 3 turns between 10 to 20%, both depending on level. And finally, her last skill is Transient Dream rank A, which increases her Buster card effectiveness for 1 turn between 30 to 50%, depending on level. It also applies invincibility and decreases her HP by 1,000. Looking at her passives, she has Avenger rank B, which increases her Noble Phantasm gain when receiving damage by 18%, but also decreases the debuff resist of all allies except herself by 8%. She has Oblivion Correction rank A, which increases her critical strength by 10%, and finally Self-Restoration Magical Energy A+, which increases her Noble Phantasm gauge per turn by 4%. Taking a look at her deck and Noble Phantasm, she has a balanced Buster deck with Quick Arts Buster, and a Buster Noble Phantasm. Her Noble Phantasm is La Grandement du Haine, which deals significant damage to a single enemy with between a 600 to 1000% damage modifier. It also applies buff immunity for 1 time, and inflicts curse for 5 turns between 500 and 2500 depending on overcharge. Taking a closer look at her deck, we see that her quick card hits 3 times, her arts card hits twice, her buster hits 4 times, and her extra attack hits 7 times. She has a Noble Phantasm gain rate of 0.83% and a star rate of 6%. This gives her above average Noble Phantasm gain and decent star generating due to the high hit counts on her extra. We finally made it to Jalter's release, and I'll save you all the suspense and say what we all already know. Jalter is one of the best servants in the game. Her attack stat is incredibly high and even puts coup alters to shame, being nearly 500 points higher. But it isn't just her attack that makes her good, her skills are possibly the best set of offensive abilities in the game. Starting with Dragon Witch, a charisma that has the added effect of double buffing dragon allies. Much like with Maeve and Liz's charisma abilities, this one doesn't double buff Jalter herself since she surprisingly doesn't have the dragon trait. But it does still give her a decent sized attack buff and works very well as a strong support skill for dragon allies, of which there are quite a few, including Arturia and Liz, as well as all their variations. Jalter's main buff skill is Transient Dream, which is effectively a mana burst that also applies invincibility, making it simultaneously a major offensive and defensive tool. It does come with a 1000 HP demerit, which is significant considering how low Jalter's HP is, but very much worth it to save you from an enemy Noble Phantasm or to land the finishing blow. I should also note that if you use this skill when your HP is below 1000, you won't die, your HP just drops to 1. And finally, her last skill is Self-Modification. This is a tremendously strong ability that grants her a 3-turn crit damage buff, and it provides her a strong buff to star gather rate that makes up for her low star weight. And with a short 5-turn cooldown at max rank, you can have this skill active for the majority of the fight. This is arguably her best skill and what makes her such a powerful servant, not only being a buster servant with 13,000 attack and a single target Noble Phantasm, but also having the power to crit easily and a built-in big crit damage buff. She can easily be considered the best buster crit servant in the game. Still, when it comes to which skill you should max first, it's hard to say. If you can use her in a crit team and you have good star generators, then max self-modification first, then transient dream, and finally Dragon Witch. If you don't have good star generating supports for her, then you're going to want a more all-purpose attacker, so max transient dream first, followed by Dragon Witch, and then self-modification. There isn't much to say about Jalter's Noble Phantasm, other than it's really strong. Thankfully, Jalter has a naturally good Noble Phantasm gain, and she gains 4% Noble Phantasm per turn from her passive, so you shouldn't ever have any problems charging her Noble Phantasm. She doesn't have many big weaknesses to speak of. She is an Avenger, so despite her high attack, she does not have class advantage against the vast majority of servants, but unlike with Dante's, this isn't as much of an issue for her, because even when dealing neutral damage, she can pump out berserker level damage and can even out damage servants that have class advantage, provided that she can crit often enough. Her strongest Buster buff skill is also tied to her only defensive skill, much like with Jack and Li Xuan, but thanks to the fact that her other two skills also give her a considerable spike in her attack power, you aren't sacrificing as much damage as you are with the other two. If you're forced to use Transient Dream defensively, it's okay because you still have a charisma buff and your ridiculous 100,000 crit damage to fall back on. Really, Jalter's only major weakness is her low HP. Despite the invincibility skill, she can be pretty fragile without a good support. Thankfully, as a Buster crit servant, she synergizes perfectly with all the top tier supports in the game. It shouldn't be any surprise, but your best support option for her is Waver, because he can buff her defense, her crit damage, her attack, and give her everything she needs. Merlin is also going to be ideal for her once he's released. Other than that, Hans, Nero Bride, and Nightingale are powerful support options as well, because they can both buff her and keep her alive. If you want extra survivability, Jeanne, Media Lily, Mosh, and Tamamo are some good choices. All the versions of Arturia and Liz pair really well with Jalter because they benefit from her dragon buff. And in Liz Lancer's case, Jalter also benefits from her female buff. Anyone with a 20-30 craft essence makes for a decent star generator for her, though Mysterious Heroine X in particular is a good star generator to pair with Jalter because she can take advantage of the dragon buff. Jalter's Bondcraft Essence is Hell of Burning Punishment, which gives all allies a 15% Buster buff. Not bad, especially on the Buster team, but you're far better off using Victor from the Moon to maximize her damage. Limited Zero, Gudao, and Halloween Princess are also really great offensive options. Kitchen Patriciere is a decent choice if you want to make her more self-sustaining. And the new craft essences, Art of Death and Maiden Leading Chaldea, are great on her as well. Art of Death works perfectly if you're using her in a boss rush fight, and Maiden Leading Chaldea is strong if you don't have a good crit star generator to feed her stars. Overall, not a surprise, but Jalter is OP. Her offensive potential is off the charts. She has possibly the highest damage output in the game, despite not having class advantage most of the time. She synergizes perfectly with the best supports in the game, and she has 3 incredible offensive skills with invincibility for defense. I wouldn't say that she's at the top of the pyramid of OP servants. Merlin, Waver, and Tamamo are still the holy trinity of the meta, and Jalter is arguably a little stronger given how fragile she is and how much survivability he has. Still though, no one has Jalter beat when it comes to raw offensive power, so she does get the S rating from me. For a servant that's so hyped, I don't think she's overrated, nor do I think she falters as much in the late game like some people seem to think. If you can provide her with a decent support, it's not very difficult at all to keep her alive, and her versatility as an Avenger lets her be used in nearly any situation. And those are my thoughts on Jalter. Good luck to everyone rolling. May we all survive the tsunami of salt headed to our shores. And if you're wondering how to farm the event itself, please do check out my event guide in the description below and on screen right now, as well as the Edison Spotlight. Don't forget to leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and consider subscribing if you really enjoyed the video. Ring that bell so you can be part of our notification squad, and join the party over at our Discord. And I'll see you all in the next Servant Spotlight. Sobroni out. Later.